Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. Today we are going to be taking a tour to Mombasa. We are going to be bringing some beautiful local inspiration from our very own country. My name is Chef Andy, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce the ingredients we're going to be working with today. So from my furthest right end, I have some beautiful cut tilapia there. I've also got some coconut milk and some fresh coconut juice. I've also got some pureed tomatoes and some whole tomatoes. Got some white onions, a bit of lemon, a bit of desiccated, freshly grated coconut, a bit of coriander, a bit of salt. I'm also going to be using this beautiful bread to show you how to make some garlic bread. I'm also going to be using some beautiful coconut oil there. I'm also going to use a bit of paprika and curry powder, some bay leaves and some star anise, some garlic, some ginger, some beautiful lime leaves, and last but not least, some parsley. So we're going to take a short commercial break now, and we're going to give you the chance to grab your pens and papers if you are taking notes. And when we come back, I'm going to show you how to bring Mombasa to this very own kitchen. See you in a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We took a short break and we just introduced the ingredients. So if you're just catching up, you will be able to follow from this point. So without further ado, we're going to start with the simplest beginning of every particular fish dish, especially if you're working with whole fish. And we're basically just going to be frying this in some hot oil. But while we let our oil heat up, we're just going to prepare some of our other ingredients. So as I said, I'm going to be working with some beautiful lime leaves there. But to that, I'm also going to be using a bit of garlic, which I'm going to add to my pestle and mortar. And to that, I'm also going to be adding my star anise seeds. We're also going to add a bit of that beautiful ginger. So we're just going to quickly just get a bit of that root. All I'm going to do is give it just a quick rough chop, and this goes in there as well. And all that's left to do is just basically pound that. So very just something off the record, very common tool to have in any typical Swahili kitchen. So you might actually come to realize that there might not be a lot of very modern ingredients on the table. I'm actually just going to be bringing it as I learned it. Right, and now we're just going to give that a mix. And something I also like to do, I also like to incorporate just a bit of oil in there just to be able to get everything to just hold shape and actually fuse in together. Right, so that's about done. So what we're going to quickly do now is we're actually going to move these pots around a little bit. So I'm actually going to move my oil further to the side just to give us some room to be able to work with the two pots. So to this pot, we're going to be making our Swahili sauce. Very simple recipe. So right, our oil is just about ready. I'm just going to use a bit of that coconut to check it. Yeah, and that's bubbling. It's very much ready to go. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna throw this fish in, and we're just gonna allow that to continue cooking while we build our sauce. So very, very particularly, very important to make sure your fish is not wet when it goes in. Always make sure to drain that excess liquid that comes off your fish, and that goes straight into the oil. Now I'll do the same thing with the head. And last but not least, the last tail bit. Right, so basically what you want to do at this stage is you're basically just browning the fish. Remember, this will actually give you a bit of advantage when you actually mix it in with your sauce later. So we're just going to turn that a few times just to make sure it's evenly colored and coated. Right, so basically we're going to give that a few minutes to continue, and we're going to come back to it. But in the meantime, we do have a nice beautiful pot here, of which I'm just going to first of all go in with that coconut cream. So remember, I'm actually not using oil to cook this particular sauce. I'm using coconut cream, which actually does give that bit of a boost of flavor and actually of authenticity. Right, so once that is starting just to melt down, we're also going to incorporate our garlic and ginger mixture. Remember, in here was garlic, ginger, star aniseed, a bit of olive oil. So all that goes into the pan. Now all we're going to do is fry those a little bit, get them to be fragrant, get them to start infusing with a bit of that oil. And actually just immediately you actually start to get that beautiful coconut aroma coming through, which is what you're looking for. And now to that, so basically you're not going to cook this too long, you're not going to color them. Basically as soon as you have it just infused with the oil, we're now going to start incorporating the rest. So here I have about 4 pureed tomatoes. We're just going to continue cooking this down. So particularly for this dish, a lot of emphasis goes into the sauce. A lot of flavors are actually incorporated in there. And it's more of a dish that you'd actually be cooking 2 separate pots, and you'd probably introduce, or rather incorporate all the ingredients together at the end. So it's actually the only reason why I'm actually using side-by-side pans. But something you'd probably be able to know is in the coast, you might actually be able to buy your fish already dried, because they actually do sell you dried fish. So you can actually alternatively use already cooked fish that's just dried and fresh. And that should actually be able to incorporate really well. But if you're going to be cleaning your old tilapia like myself, I prefer to buy it whole, clean it myself and fry it. That way I actually make sure that it's actually as fresh as I can get it. So we're just going to turn that around again. And basically what you're looking for is a very, very crisp finish to your fish. So this should be cooking for at least about 10 to 15 minutes. Right, so we're just going to leave that undisturbed, and we're just going to let that continue. Right, so in the pot now we've been cooking our tomatoes. They're now just starting to really break up and infuse with that beautiful coconut. Now to that we're just going to be introducing all the other ingredients that we had remaining. So as I mentioned, I had some leaves of bay leaf here. And I also have here some tandoori masala, which is with a mixture of a bit of curry powder. So I'm just going to go about 2 teaspoons of that to 1 teaspoon of paprika powder. All we are going to do is continue cooking that. Remember, the sauce is going to continue breaking up as it continues. You will have everything puree themselves down. So you shouldn't actually be worried too much at this stage if your sauce is looking a little chunky. Right, so to that we're going to continue adding some of our ingredients. So I'm also going to add just 3 pieces of lime leaf. And as you can be able to see, the sauce actually just starts to color and the beautiful red starts to stand out. Right, so simple as that. I'm also going to be incorporating some of that beautiful coconut juice. And we also go in with about half a cup of coconut cream. We're just gonna go half of that. And actually something I like to do with my particular Swahili sauce, I like to actually buy my coconut fresh, break it open, get the beautiful flesh out of it and just grate it, and it actually gives you a very, very beautiful finish. So I'm just going to add about 4 tablespoons of that into that same sauce. Just gonna give that a stir, and we're just gonna allow that to continue cooking. Right, and to that we will just basically be adding just a bit of seasoning. So we're gonna go in with about 2 pinches of salt and a bit of some ground black pepper. Right, so we're just basically gonna allow that to continue cooking on low heat. So this should actually give you quite a bit of time to really get those flavors to marry in there, give you a bit of time to develop all the flavors. So by the time your fish is now quickly fried and ready, we're just going to incorporate everything together. So we're just going to turn that again, and you can start seeing the beautiful brown color. That's what you're looking for. And actually the same color should run right through to all the pieces of the fish. Right, so while our sauce continues, I'm also going to show you a few other things that we can bring onto the table with this particular dish. And for this particular one, actually is a very, very simple accompaniment, something most of you might actually be able to do really, really quickly. It's just a very simple technique of doing garlic bread. So for that, you are going to need just some regular old stale bread. I'm also going to be using 1 lemon, and I always insist, just give it a squeeze before you cut it and juice it. Allows you to get more juice out of your lemon. Right, so we're just going to cut that up, and we're going to squeeze out the juice. Right, so very important to make sure that your fish actually cooks really well right to the center. Remember, you actually want it to be a little dry and crispy. So you should actually just leave out quite a bit of time when you fry your fish. So we're just going to take the juice of 1 lemon, and I'm using a strainer just to be able to get the seeds out a little faster. And we can discard the rest. Right, now to that we are going to be adding some butter, but we're going to melt this in the microwave really quickly. So I'm going to leave it in there for about 30 seconds, and we're going to check on it again. In the meantime, just going to keep checking our sauce. So it's now starting to constitute, it's just starting to build a bit of its flavors, and the aromas from everything are just coming through really well. I'm just going to turn the heat up a little bit, and I'm going to add the rest of my coconut milk. And we're basically gonna give that a bit of time to continue cooking, but in the meantime, we're gonna check on the butter. Okay, now that's melted. So very important, you will need a whisk for this particular process. You'll also need just a bit of salt in there. So we're gonna go in with the butter as well. Just gonna give that a quick mix. So very important to actually pour your butter in while it's still hot. It's the only way you're going to get that lemon and butter to really infuse. And now simply to that, I will also be adding a bit of parsley. So I'm just going to roughly chop that up. Right, so simple as that. So that's about 2 tablespoons of parsley. And I'm also going to incorporate just a little bit of some fresh coriander. So about a tablespoon as well. And all you want to do is shred that really quickly. And this is going to go into the same bowl. So what we're going to do is basically, we actually give that just a few seconds to infuse before we actually apply it onto the bread. So I'm just going to leave that on the side. And then we're just going to quickly throw our eyes on this side just to turn our fish one last time. And as you can see, it's now just starting to become really brown. And that's exactly the texture we were looking for. And our sauce is now also just almost done. Right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to turn this off and we're going to bring it back on the heat later. Particularly, I like to cook my sauce in 2 processes because of, for the 2 reasons that you can actually be able to really give your sauce a bit of character when you cook it twice, and you actually build the flavor slowly as they continue to infuse. So I would basically just leave that on the pot and just give it a few minutes. And for that we will also need our oven. So I'm just going to turn it over to the element side of it, and I'm going to turn my temperature about 200 degrees. And we're just going to give that a few minutes to reheat, and I'll show you what we'll do with that. So basically very, very, very simple. Sauce is ready, your fish is almost cooked. You've got your nice, beautiful bread that's just about to go into the oven. But I will also show you a very simple salad that will go with this, but this we're probably going to do just a little later once this is already starting to cook together. But one thing to remember, as I said, very particular to make sure the freshness of your fish is not compromised. As I said, if you do have the time to actually clean and cut and cook your fish to that stage yourself, it's always a little easier. Right, so I'm going to quickly just turn this back on. And all we are going to do now is take out our fish, and we're just going to give that a few seconds just to drain. And for that, I'm going to just use a bowl. And now your fish is now definitely cooked through, and this is just about ready to go in. But very, very important to actually give it just a few seconds to drip that excess oil. All right. So simple as that. I would occasionally just do my fish that way. I would just put it in my sieve or my strainer. Give it just a few seconds to just drip all that excess oil off. This should actually also give you a bit of time to allow your oil to cool off. And also your oven is already reheating, so I'm just going to show you a quick technique of making your own garlic bread. And then we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, I will actually now be showing you what everything will look like at the end. But before we do that, we are going to quickly change pan. So remember, this is a very particular good option for making a sauce. It is actually a saucepan by name, but for the reason that we might not be able to really get that fish to be coated really well in a pot that size, I prefer to just switch to a bigger pan. So if you do have something bigger, or if you have an oven dish that can go into the oven, also works really well. So very, very simple. All you're going to do now is transfer the fish to the pan, and you can choose to lay it down on whichever side, it doesn't really matter. And And to that, I'm just going to pour in the sauce, and I like to use the back of my spoon just to make sure it doesn't splash. All you do is pour that right over the fish. And we're just going to allow that to infuse and cook really slowly on some very, very low heat. And this should actually be a very, very quick process, so it shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes. Actually, if you for portions that are this big, it might take longer, but if you actually have a smaller cut of a fish or smaller chunks of fish, it will reconstitute really quickly. So this we're just going to allow to continue at low heat, and we'll come back to it later. But before we jump into that short break, I'm going to show you what to do with this beautiful bread. And it's a very, very simple technique. I like to just look for a container that I can work with, particularly one that is flat and can allow me to actually get all that bread in there. So all I'm going to do now is just remix that again, and we're going to pour all that into a container. And very, very simply, we're going to grab our bread. And I like to just give it a bit of a shake just to make sure it spreads out really well. And all I'm going to do is just soak my bread in there and turn it once and shake it again, and that's about it. And I'll just do the same thing for the other piece. Just really give it a bit of time in there to really absorb those juices and really coat with that bit of chopped coriander that you have in there. And all you're going to do now is leave both slices of bread in there. Very, very simply, just a dash of salt over the top. Just give it a bit of a flavor. And yeah, that's about it. So we're just going to throw this under the element in the oven, and we're just going to really just toast it and give it a bit of color. So I'm just going to leave that in there. We will come back and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. We'll also take a short commercial break now, and when we come back, you're going to be able to see what the fish looks like. You're going to see the toasted garlic bread. And I'm also going to show you how to make a very, very simple African salad with the help of a bit of tomatoes, a bit of onions, and a bit of lemons, and last but not least, coriander. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We took a short break and we were actually just finishing off this lovely, lovely, beautiful Swahili style fish. And now I'm just going to first of all take out our toast, which is now done. Perfect. Right, so now that is ready, that is now hot. Our fish is also nicely cooked through now. And all that's left to do is finish this off. But before we take that off the fire, off the heat, as I said, I was going to show you a very, very simple salad, a very local salad actually, that we would probably have served with this particular dish in the coast. And it is just basically the Kenyan or the Swahili version of a tomato and onion salsa, which is now what I'm going to quickly show you what to do. So I always start by quartering my tomatoes, and all I'm going to do now is get some strips from that. So very, very thin strips, thinnest you can cut actually. Right, and our fish is now, it's about dry enough and it's perfect. That should be ready to go out. So back to the salad. Just about one sliced tomato. I'm also going to go in with a bit of lemon juice. This is just to really pick up the flavors and give it a bit of a flavor at the end, a bit of a flavor kick. So we're also going to add a bit of some white onion. So I'm just going to slice that into nice thick wedges. I'll show you now. So I'm just going to take this dead skin off the onion. Definitely you don't want that to be in your salad. Right, and once I break that as I have, very simple technique. Just take the edges off your onions like that. And all you're going to do is just very thinly go right around your onion. So simple as that, very easy chopping technique. And I'll just show you with this other piece once more. So all I did was take the edges out, and basically what you want to do is basically just slice your onion as you go in really thin, and you're basically just gonna go right around it. So I'll just show it to you again. So very simply, just start working your way towards the center of the onion and then flip it over. And simple as that, one beautifully chopped white onion. And now just for a bit of color and a bit of the flavor as well, we're also very fond of using a bit of some fresh coriander. So this I'm just going to roughly chop up quickly. Right, and about a tablespoon should do for salad in that amount. And basically that is done now. All that's left to do is give that a quick mixture, and we can go straight on to plating. So very simple salad, as I said. I'm just going to clear that out quickly. So very simply, just give that a mix. Right, simple as that. You could actually also optionally just dress it with a bit of olive oil. So that's just for a bit of a color and a bit of a glossy finish. Now all we are going to do is transfer this salad onto a bowl, which I would basically just serve it as simple as that. So very simple salad, as I said, doesn't need a lot of improvising from your pantry or from your kitchen at home. Very simple and basic ingredients. As I said, the only other optional addition I would have in there would be olive oil, but it's just for color, so you can actually avoid that. So simple as that. So we're just going to go in with our nice beautiful chunks of fish, and that I would place just right around the plate like that. Remember, you'd probably be serving this onto a table with awaiting guests or family members that are just seated there waiting for dinner. I would probably just serve it that way and let them just really get into it and dig into it themselves. So let's, last but not least, a bit of that beautiful Swahili sauce. And I also like to always just pull the chunky herbs that we put in there. Remember, we added in there some lime leaves. We also added in some bay leaf, and those are not really edible to serve. So we're just going to slide those to the side like that, and all we do now is just finish that with that beautiful sauce right over the top. Simple as that. And I would probably finish that off with a nice beautiful slice of garlic toast right on the side like that. Right, so simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. A very simple particular dish that, as I said, definitely brings some beautiful memories every time I think about it. And I bet most of you are definitely going to be trying this out. As you've been able to see, very simple, very easy to acquire ingredients fresh from your regular outlets. And this should actually be able, you should actually be able to make this tonight if you're looking at a very beautiful fish dinner. So from my end, it has been a pleasure. My name is Chef Andy. I have been your host today. I have enjoyed definitely doing this with you, and I hope you catch us on the next episode when we continue to bring some beautiful festive dishes to your living room. So from my end in the studios, have a lovely season.